down during this. And if I need to announce what just took place, we, as a group, as an entire group, we just voted, for the sake of the video, we just voted on whether or not to allow filming of the State of the State statement portion. And everyone in the room agreed to that. So that's what we're doing. And nobody in the room declined on that. So that's where we're at. So I guess at this point, I'm going to introduce Amy Reed and Noah Levine, and they're going to come up, and we're going to have the State of the State, I believe. Is there anybody else attending on that part as well? Okay. So we're going to have them come up and present their portions of that.
Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Buddham Saranam Gacchami. Dhammam Saranam Gacchami. Sangham Saranam Gacchami. Dutiyampi Buddham Saranam Gacchami. Dutiyampi Dhammam Saranam Gacchami. Dutiyampi Sangham Saranam Gacchami. Tatiyampi Buddham Saranam Gacchami. Tatiyampi Dhammam Saranam Gacchami. Tatiyampi Sangham Saranam Gacchami.
I take refuge in not this microphone.
Yeah. Well, actually, no. Plug it. Just try it.
What I just said was I take refuge in the Buddha and in the Dharma and in the Sangha. And as has been my practice for a long time. I want to start by asking for forgiveness for all of the ways that my own unskillfulness, imperfections have caused harm, and acknowledge that I know and believe and understand that karma is not a idea, it is a reality that we live and breathe, and that I'm fully karmically accountable for all of my intentional actions, and I ask forgiveness. I have a feeling that what's taking place in Refuge Recovery, which has been a place for celebration. These conferences have been a place for celebrating our community and progress that we've made as a community in helping each other and supporting each other's recovery. And certainly feels like that tone has been quite lost of celebration, and feels a bit tragic what's happening. So I show up with a feeling of mourning, of loss, of grieving. Experiencing the cycles of grief, of anger, of bargaining, of denial, of acceptance, and then more anger, and then more bargaining, and then more denial, and then more acceptance. I created Refuge Recovery because I really wanted a Buddhist community to recover with. And I wanted the Buddhist practices to be available as a recovery process. I got tired of splitting my spiritual practice and views in Buddhism with the Buddhists who did not understand addiction, did not support abstinence. Unfortunately, even though Buddhism supports abstinence, my experience of the Buddhists, very few of them practicing the fifth precept as abstinence. And splitting that with, my long-term and ongoing participation in the 12-step rooms, where the philosophy didn't resonate, but they were my people, our people, understanding addiction from the inside. And I knew that, or I thought, that the only way to make can we turn it down so it doesn't resonate so much, or do I just need to hold it away? I figured the only way to do a Buddhist recovery movement was to make it peer-led. And let everybody guide each other, just like we've done in the 12 steps for 80 years. Peer support, which is a controversial thing to do in Buddhism. Buddhism is such a hierarchical system. You need a Dharma teacher, you need a initiation, all of these things, empowerment. said, hey, if they can take Christianity and call it the 12 steps, we can, peer-led with no priests. We can do that in Buddhism. And, it's been amazing to see it work, and and with a lot of criticism, and a lot of skepticism. But there's so many people in this room who have come and applied these Four Noble Truths, this Eightfold Path, and recovered. And so now it's not an idea, we know it works. 5 years in, there's lots of people who only have done Refuge and have recovered. There's so many of us that came through the 12-step world, and people are like, well, you did the 12 steps, that's why you're sober. Buddhism is extra. But now there's all of these people who've just done this and are recovering. Feel a little bit frozen, a little bit kind of at a loss for how to address the situation. I don't have the answers. I'm certain that I've made many mistakes. And I continue to be completely committed to a life of service, a life of helping each other, of community, and to making sure that Refuge Recovery continues to exist. I got a lot of resistance from the beginning, even from people who were interested in this Buddhist recovery process, for my perspective that it was important to include treatment options. That with millions of people every year that seek professional treatment, I felt it was important for them to be able to be introduced to a Buddhist treatment process, a refuge recovery professional treatment experience. And I know a lot of the hardcore 12-step view, which is that you have to separate these two things, and I think that that has really infiltrated people in refuge who say like, oh no, we're not allowed to do that because the 12 steps say so, the 12 traditions say so. And I thought we had an opportunity to actually reach so many people who are going to be going to detoxes, going to treatment centers, and introduce them to these practices. And I know that's been controversial. And I think it's my own view continues to be, this is very important to be able to do. And then also the piece about, in the book I told, now however many thousands and thousands of people, part of your recovery is to do retreats. In order to develop the insight, the compassion, the wisdom that we need to recover, silent, intensive, meditative retreat experience is going to not only be helpful, maybe necessary to sustain recovery. And that in order to do that, And I could be wrong about both. I could be wrong about all this. I'm just sharing like this is my kind of thoughts. And my experience was that doing meditation retreats was transformative. Changed my relationship to the craving mind drastically in a way that daily meditation practice didn't. And I think I think it feels like where we're at is like there's these two core issues around peer-led meetings and teacher-led retreats and professional treatment options is at least what's being said this split is about. It's sort of, feels like there's much more than that. It's not so much being publicly said, or is sometimes being publicly said. So what I want to say is, Refuge Recovery continues as it has for the last 5 years, and actually more, but 5 years since the book, and 5 years as a sort of national movement, international movement, with full commitment to the original vision, which is it will remain peer-led. The meetings, groups are autonomous. We do not want teachers involved in the meetings. We're not involved. We don't want teachers leading meetings. We want it to be peer-led. If a teacher is in a refuge meeting, they are peers. When I show up to refuge meetings, I am a peer in the meeting. I'm not giving a Dharma talk. I'm sharing. And a full commitment to that continuing. And to continue what we started, even before the book, which is Refuge Recovery Retreats, and providing opportunities for people to have a retreat experience with a qualified, recovering Dharma teacher. There's a lot of conversation about this, and many people who say, just let people do retreat with whoever they want. And of course, people do retreat with whoever you want. My own concern verified by seeing many recovering people relapse when they get involved in Buddhist communities where the teachers and the community are not practicing abstinence, and that sometimes there's even an encouragement towards intoxication in Buddhist communities. And for our community, just really wanting people to go and say, like, yes, I'm practicing this with someone who is practicing this, with teachers who are committed to abstinence, to the 5th precept, and actually know what it's like to be an addict in recovery. So that will continue. It's one of the major fallouts that I had with the board. Lack of support for that. And there is no refuge in treatment now. There's some kind of H&I outreach meetings in some treatment centers. But I hope actually to be able to again provide when people are coming into detox. It was so amazing. We had for a little over 4 years, we had a treatment center and teaching people mindfulness while they were detoxing and getting them doing forgiveness in their first week of sobriety and really giving them these tools from the beginning. And still have so many of those people, hundreds of people went through that process. So many of them coming back. I was at my class on Monday night, a couple of alumni came through, and one was like, I've got 3 years, I've got 4 years, I'm still meditating regularly, still practicing refuge. And they got that foundation from their experience in treatment. And I have every intention to provide that again. I think it's important. I think it's important for our community. And I know people have different views about that. I think it's important for the world to not just be introduced to the 12 steps when you're in treatment, but to also be introduced to refuge. The folks who I asked to help me create the infrastructure that became the board of directors, as you all know and has been publicly announced, has decided that they don't want to be involved in anything that I'm involved in, and have stated some philosophical differences. Yes. And are going to create something new and take this idea of a peer-led Buddhist recovery groups that does not have retreats or treatment or any Dharma teacher wing of it, and have created the Recovery Dharma. And it's complicated. I have a lot of feelings about it, but what I want to say, where I want to come from is I want to wish you well. I want to come back to this feeling like there's grief, like I feel like half of this, I don't know, maybe whatever, so many people in this room are leaving Refuge Recovery, and it feels sad, and I feel grief about it. And I want to wish you well. And I want to extend appreciation to all of the people who have been participating and helping each other and supporting their sanghas, and thank you for doing that. And I trust that you will continue to do that under a new name and with some new literature, and I continue to feel just really happy that this exists. I don't care so much what it's called. I'm glad that these Buddhist communities, I know some communities have already kind of stuck their flag, and we're not Refuge anymore, we're Recovery Dharma, and I just want to wish you well and the Sanghas well, and I hope that you continue to serve each other in a good way, and that people continue to have access to these practices in your communities. And I want to thank everyone on the board who helped create the infrastructure of Refuge. Even though we had our disagreements and I have some strong feelings about how everything has been handled, I also have gratitude for the volunteer work that you did, that, all of the time and energy that you all put into to Refuge Recovery. And good luck with your new endeavor, and may it be successful for the benefit of all sentient beings in existence and all of the addicts seeking refuge, seeking help, seeking recovery. that's all that wants to be said for now. I'll pass it to Amy, and I look forward to your questions.
Hello. A lot of you don't know me yet. My name is Amy Reed, and I'm from the Asheville, North Carolina Sangha. I joined the board of directors of Refuge Recovery just this last February, I think, and I was on the literature committee, I think since the beginning of the literature committee, just about. And I am kind of on the sort of transition team of what is now being referred to as Recovery Dharma. Maybe that name will stick, maybe not, we'll see. I'm a much better writer than I am a talker, so I wrote something, and hopefully it won't be too boring. First, I just want to honor what everyone is feeling right now and convey my compassion for everyone in this room and everyone back home in our sanghas. As Noah mentioned, there's a lot of grief and a lot of feeling of loss and some anger and some hurt and a lot of suffering. And I think a lot of us are also feeling a sense of excitement about the possibilities of what is happening right now and what is starting. Some of us have felt very harmed by the situation over the last year or so, and some of us have felt old, deep wounds reopened. And I just want to say that all of these feelings are valid and true, and it's important to honor them and meet them with compassion for ourselves and for everybody here. Speaking for myself, recovery communities have been a home for me over the last 10 years, often feeling like more of a home than the dysfunctional one I grew up in. And Refuge in particular in the last 3 years has provided exactly that, a refuge. It is a place I go to feel safe, a place that I want to be stable. And that feeling of stability has been really challenged for me and for a lot of us. Throughout all of this, I found an opportunity to really deepen my practice, to understand the truth of change and impermanence, and to ask myself what it is I value and what it means to live in integrity and wise action and service. To really investigate my reactivity and my resentments, and to try to cultivate compassion and forgiveness and equanimity. I think the metaphor of the lotus is really relevant right now. It's a flower that needs a lot of mud to grow, and we have a lot of collective mud. But all of that has been food for the 2 flowers that are starting to blossom now. It's given us all an opportunity to really ask ourselves what it is we want in our recovery community and in our sanghas. To ask ourselves what we value and what we can build based on those values, and how we can live in integrity as a group, and how to live in integrity as 2 groups who share the same essential mission to help people end the suffering of addiction. It's become very clear that Noah has a different vision for Refuge Recovery than some of us have, and he will be able to build that vision his way. And many people are excited about that and will follow him as he develops Refuge Recovery World Services, and I wish them all the best. And there are some of us who had a different vision of Refuge Recovery when we started going to meetings. And we're eager to start something new, a peer-led and grassroots movement, which we are calling Recovery Dharma. We aim to be an organization built from the ground up, defined by the collaborative efforts of the autonomous individuals and sanghas who are doing the real work of recovery in their communities to relieve the suffering of addiction. We will follow no leader, but trust in the wisdom of the Dharma and in each individual's own potential for recovery and awakening. Ultimately, we believe that recovery is about finding your own inner wisdom and your own path, about finding your own personal relationship to the 3 jewels of the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. We can trust in the wisdom of our Sangha of wise friends. We can learn from them when we do not yet have the answers for ourselves. We can learn from Dharma teachers and attend retreats of our own choosing, based on where we find wisdom and inspiration. This is very different than following a leader who is built into the foundation of a program. We believe recovery and practice are about empowerment, and following a single leader has the potential to take away our power. We will work together to build a democratically elected leadership, and we will make financial integrity and transparency a priority. The purpose of the leadership will be to serve the community and support what's happening at the ground level, to provide an infrastructure so that we may share resources, communicate, and grow together. We will learn from the wisdom of recovery programs that have come before us, who have experienced longevity because of their dedication to being truly peer-led and not-for-profit. Toward remaining truly not-for-profit, we acknowledge that it is not our role to provide treatment resources or retreats for our members, while also recognizing the importance of these resources to individuals recovering from addiction. We will develop and publish our own literature, and every cent earned from sales will go back directly into the organization to serve our community. I think you've all received a draft of the first book created by the Literature Committee. It was co-written and edited completely by volunteers, by your peers, as a humble act of service to this community. Early drafts were reviewed by several Dharma teachers, therapeutic professionals, and people who work in the recovery field, and several other members of the community. The authors' names will never be on the cover. None of us will ever receive any money, and neither will a giant corporate publisher. It will be open source, and the ebook will always be available for free or by donation for anyone who needs it. This is literature by the community, for the community, to benefit the community. What you have now is just a draft, and we want to integrate community input in a revised version to be printed as a physical book. But anyone is free to start using this version in meetings now if they'd like. And it's available on our Facebook page, and will be available on our new website when it goes live in a few weeks. Our intention in this book was to provide a clear outline of a Buddhist path of recovery from addiction, based on the Four Noble Truths and Eightfold Path, including the 5 precepts, the 4 heart practices, and the 4 foundations of mindfulness, with a strong emphasis on finding wisdom and support in the Sangha. We aim to stay close to the Buddha's original teachings, not rewriting them, but exploring how they naturally relate to recovery from addiction. Each truth and aspect of the Eightfold Path has corresponding questions for inquiry that will help us see our addictive behaviors and recovery more clearly through the lens of the Dharma. We've provided a new script template and meditations that meetings can adapt as needed. And we aim to be deeply inclusive of process addictions and trauma-informed language, and to emphasize the holistic and compassionate approach to recovery that we feel is inherent in the Buddhist path. This book and this program are new, but the wisdom is very old. None of us in this room authored Buddhism, nor did we invent recovery, but we are all already practicing both in our own ways. We are in a time of transition at the group level. There's no denying that. But we can find equanimity and steadiness in our individual practice. Recovery Dharma is still grounded in the same basic Buddhist principles as Refuge Recovery. We believe that understanding the Four Noble Truths and practicing the Eightfold Path can lead to the end of the suffering of addiction and the suffering of being a human in this world. What is different is our vision as a collective and our freedom from someone else's vision. Each meeting in Sangha is in a position now where they may want to make a decision on how to define themselves. It is our hope that the decision is made as democratically as possible, with as many members of your community being informed and possibly voting on how you collectively want to proceed. In an effort to democratically build and scale this program, we'll be sending out a survey in the coming days, and we have some Zoom calls scheduled for this coming Tuesday and Thursday, and you can talk to people for that information. We have a new website that will be going live, that will have resources and information. And the Recovery Dharma Facebook group launched just last week, has already shown itself to be an incredible place for support and the enthusiastic exchange of ideas. I'm incredibly moved by the excitement and compassion and wise speech people are expressing there, and how many people are stepping up to volunteer. Throughout all this change, I hope we can all remember that the priority is always our own individual recovery and practice. And I hope Noah would agree that there's no requirement for anyone to choose sides. Some of us will, because that's the decision that feels an integrity for us, and it will be a boundary that feels necessary in supporting our recovery. But you are free to be a member of both Refuge Recovery World Services and a member of Recovery Dharma, or neither. What matters is that you find the path that's right for you, and a Sangha where you feel supported and cared for as you do this brave work of recovery and healing. I'm a conflict-averse person by nature, so sitting up here right now is really uncomfortable. Being on the board for the last few months has at times been really uncomfortable. But something I've been learning through my practice is how to lean into discomfort, because it's there that I find my practice really defines itself. Transition can be uncomfortable. The unknown can be very uncomfortable. But it's also there where we can find spaciousness and possibility and freedom. Right now, we are at the beginning of building something brand new, together, defined by us. It's going to take work, but we are people who have committed to understanding wise effort and wise action. We are people who understand generosity and loving kindness, not just as concepts, but as actions. And we know that community, that Sangha, is the place where we heal from the isolation of addiction. I am so grateful and honored to be walking this path with each and every one of you, and to be building this movement together, founded on the principle of developing our own personal relationship to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, where we trust in our own inner wisdom, our own potential for waking up. This is a path that does not require us to believe in anything, not a higher power, and not a guru. This is a path of empowerment, not powerlessness. And we are empowered now to build something from the ground up, defined by us, as a collective of beautifully flawed and suffering human beings. We have all made mistakes, and we have all caused harm to ourselves and others. But we are also people who are capable of the most profound compassion and healing and transformation, who are doing this brave work of recovery every single day. We are showing up on our cushions even when our minds feel like battlefields. We are choosing to forgive and listen deeply. We are choosing to do the right thing even when it's hard. We are showing up to meetings and reaching out to newcomers and building community, and we are saving each other's lives. I am grateful to be walking this path with each and every one of you, and I thank you for letting me be of service.
Okay, guys, so we're going to move into the Q&A. Just want to remind everybody the agreement that we came to consensus about was for one person in the room to film that, and that...
No.
No consensus on
No.
Q&A.
Yeah.
The Q&A won't be filmed, and this is the end of the video. Thank you very much to the speakers.